As always, I first want to start off the stream, ask you guys how you did today. Today was a weird day, a weird first half of the day. Um, but I think we were prepared for this, to be honest. I think I really am. I said this yesterday and the day before, but I really am proud of the group. And I didn't even have to say anything today in regards to what kind of day it was looking like. I saw messages in chat right away like, oh, I'm not 100% confident in anything right now. This feels like a trap. I'm just going to sit in my hands. And that was the right move. Don't be proud of me, 600 loss on a small account. Velvet on options. Was it right at the end of the day? Lucid. Oh, I honestly wasn't even watching Lucid today. I can look at that though in a second. But guys, yeah, like I was saying, I'm just got wrecked on Moderna. Velvet, I can look at those if you want me to. If not, with the Peloton fall off. Oh, right in there. But yeah, I just wanted to continue on what I was saying is it's really great to see that you guys are able to recognize these inconsistencies in the market. Man, it was I had some messages today about they weren't prepared, quote unquote, for the run we had the first half of the day. So that's something I'll touch on. I have it in my notes. I'll touch on that in a minute here, but I really am proud of you guys for not forcing any trades that you were not comfortable with. The beauty of this, guys, we do not have to trade. And that's also something I have in my notes. I see people still trying to force trades and still like being so trigger happy. They just want to trade to trade. They may not necessarily have a ton of confidence in the trade they're entering, which is a huge problem and a huge mistake. No, Miss S, I'm not calling you out. This is not in regards to anyone specific. This is just a generalization that I see not only in here but on Twitter and everywhere else. And it's something I experienced as well. I just talked to Maple last night. He literally will not trade until 10:30. There is not any reason that we should be taking trades if we're not confident in. If you're hanging out in chat and you see people entering trades and you're starting to get that FOMO and you're starting to get that feeling like, damn, everybody else is entering something, why am I not in a trade yet? Don't just enter something to enter something. We saw today the first half of the day was pretty strong. We saw after the first half hour that the market was still strong. So if you were uncomfortable trying to trade that, I don't blame you, and I don't blame you for not taking any trades. But look at how fast things turned today. Things flushed extremely hard. Okay? The triggers on the watch list were met in both directions, and we talked about QQQ last night and how important that level was today. That 200, those 200s on the daily, how important that was for us to hold. We saw today, once it broke that level, how hard things flushed. This is by design, guys. This is market maker. This is by design. This isn't just a fluke or like some weird event that happened. This is by design. We need to absolutely be confident in the trades we're taking. I saw a lot of that today where people were kind of just beating themselves up where they took something, they weren't confident, they ended up cutting it, they didn't really have a real reason why they cut it, and then it just continued to run. We need to be journaling these. The report card section is essentially the journal section for us to be reflecting on our trades. If you are uncomfortable with reflecting on it out in the open for the group, I completely understand, but it does help everybody, and it will greatly help yourself if you can type that out and put that out there. Whether you did good, whether you did bad, whether you were break even, it really does help when you can recognize the mistakes you made, or maybe you don't recognize the mistakes you made. And that's why we go over those, so we can kind of look at them together and be like, okay, well, maybe I see you took a bad entry, or maybe I see you really weren't paying attention to technicals, or you may have missed something on a different time frame. So it's super, super important to do so. And that leads me into my next point. The whole thing about, we always talk on bias into each day. This is exactly the reason that we do not have any sort of bias. Yes, I looked at that QQQ chart last night, and I'm like, damn, this is very close to the 200. It's looking like tomorrow early it's going to break the 200, but I cannot try to predetermine a move, or I cannot have any bias in regards to that. Like I said, we saw today, the first half of the day was very strong, and then things flipped on a dime. That's why we have levels charted out in both directions. If you don't trade the first half hour, and your trigger level is met, go for it. But if something is overextended through a trigger level, I had a question today on a specific chart, something that had been running all morning. Somebody said, hey, is this still a good entry? One, if in the back of your mind you have to kind of ask if it's still a good entry, 9 times out of 10 it most likely is not. And two, we should not be buying calls on something that's super overextended that's been running, and we should not be buying puts on something that's super overextended and has been pulling back. As we've said before, if you're buying puts on something that's extremely oversold, chances of that reversing continue to increase as it continues to pull back. Same with calls. If something's just running and going straight up, if we jump into calls, chances of a reversal continue to increase. Am I referring to RSI for oversold and overbought? Yeah, Velvet. Yeah, so I use RSI. I'm also using ATR. So like Microsoft, end of the day. Here, I can pull it up quick for you. So this is your RSI. You can see anything under 30, which is, I'll mark it. Anything under 30, I consider very oversold. Anything over 70, I consider very overbought. So you can see very, very, very oversold. But like I said, as we continue to get into this oversold or overbought territory, the chance of a reversal continue to increase. We should not be buying calls or puts when something is so overextended in one direction, especially if a trigger level has been met or there's no overhead or underlying support other than psych levels. Guys, if something is too far gone, forget about it. There's going to be something else. If you see something rocketing and you want to take calls, wait for it to pull back. Maybe try to play the opposite or the other side. Maybe try to play puts on it. Makes sense. It hit my put levels, but makes sense with how far. Yeah, Velvet. So that's the thing. Even though, like, you're self-aware and you even know what I'm going to say, but even though it hit your level, it was so oversold. It was so oversold. That's why these other technicals are very important when we're not just basing entries off trigger levels. We also want to use these technicals and see, okay, man, it may have hit my trigger level, but it may be so exhausted that it needs a relief bounce here soon. That's not a great time to enter. But like I said, you're self-aware of that, so that's a good thing. Another thing I want to point out, guys, before we're jumping into things, I'm not going to say who this message was from, but I had a message today about somebody was saying, oh man, every time I enter something, I'm immediately at a loss. Well, if you're entering something and you're immediately at a loss, it is due to the bid-ask spread, and we refer to that as slippage. If the bid-ask spread is it is very far apart, if you enter something like that, the chances are you're going to be at an immediate loss. It happened on Roblox today, and this is something Velvet and I were talking about in chat. The spread on Roblox was so ridiculous that if we would have entered that, we would probably have immediately been at a loss. It's important that we're looking at that before we enter. Um, so that's something I had in my notes. Guys, before we're entering these things, we need to make sure the bid and ask is not extremely far apart because that slippage, excuse me, that slippage will immediately put us at a loss. Snap. Let me go to AMD. I want to show you guys this AMD chart. AMD was a great example today about supply and demand, or demand turning to supply and vice versa. We can see this zone from yesterday. This is a demand zone, guys. You can see the price retraced yesterday, broke through our demand zone. We fell underneath. And then this demand zone turned to supply. We were never able to break back above this. Big time rejection, gap down at open right today when Webull opened. This is now supply. Pulled back, started a reversal here. This would then be our demand zone. You can see we started to run. We made a move over the 9, retraced back, bounced big time again. This was demand. You can see I started it here. We bounced out of demand. Very important to note. We approached supply for a split second here. We broke above supply and then got rejected down. Tried to break again, rejected. So this would still have been supply. And you can see, guys, if you were paying attention to AMD, this second rejection caused a huge gap down. This would have been a great put opportunity as we were then trapped under the 9. But that's why supply and demand is so important. I really suggest you guys familiarize yourself with these zones. And it goes to show you that demand and supply can flip and become one another. And that's also something to really keep in mind. Another thing I have in my notes, guys, we have to be journaling our trades. We cannot be continuously making the same mistakes. That is the definition of insanity. And I'm not going to lie to you. If somebody continues to make the same mistake over and over and over, they're going to want to give up. But if we journal our trades and we can recognize and be self-aware of a mistake that we continuously make, that is what we need to target and try to fix. If you have something that you've journaled and it's a specific mistake you're making, please reach out to me. I implore you guys, please reach out to me and we can fix it. But we cannot continuously, day in and day out, make the same mistake, or we will never make any sort of progression. We may have 3 green trades and then 3 red trades, and we're just break even or losing money or barely profitable. We cannot continuously make these same mistakes. That's why journaling is so important. You may be self-aware without journaling. In all honesty, that is me. Velvet, and you shouldn't be ashamed of that, honestly. You're self-aware, and that's important. 99% of people aren't self-aware of that. No matter what that mistake is, can I just go back to OTC? Yeah, no matter what that mistake is, guys, it's going to be different. It's going to differ from person to person, but it's so important we journal those. Velvet, is it something you want to share, or if not, it's totally fine. But I know there's people in here that we need to really work on trying to fix the same mistake over and over. I had an issue today with Microsoft, but more so with staying in on the trade. You were right for mentioning the strong first half. Caught in a bear trap that sold an hour later. Microsoft started to dump for stocks like Microsoft that can have huge moves both ways. How would you go about staying in the trade if you're caught in consolidation, thinking it might go one way or another? Gelato, so it really all depends on technicals and key levels. If something's consolidating, but say you're taking puts, for example. If something is consolidating at or below your entry, you're still good. If it's under the 9, for example, and it's just consolidating under the 9, use that level as your, okay, I get out if confirmation above. It's important that we have a plan in regards to, okay, this is where I entered and this is where I'm exiting, whether you use a mental stop or a hard stop. It's so important. Consolidation can break either way. Velvet, yeah, if you're you can hop in here if your mic's not muted.
Yeah, I'm.
Okay, yeah, I hear
Can you
you.
hear me?
Yep.
All right. So I think me and you have kind of talked about this. I think there's a little bit of ego that's still involved with me, and not. I don't know what it is. I take call outs instead of, and I know that's my first mistake, instead of just like doing it on my own.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I take call outs, I don't necessarily know, like, in regards to the chart. It's a, oh, fuck it, I'll just grab based on these alerts because these people kill, and they do.
Yeah.
But my issue being is I always seem to grab the losing trades and fucking never grab the winning trade, you know?
So for the
That go ahead.
so for that, man, it's hard because when you have people calling out specific trades, um, they tend to dump easily. Do you feel like it's you probably grab something and then it dumps on you and you're kind of stuck?
Not necessarily, no. So one of my rules right now, this is before I even said it to you,
Mm-hmm.
is like playing spreads. Um, like today, I can break down one of my trades. Like Drippy, who Drippy Too Hard is, I
Yep.
would assume, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I play with Drippy Too Hard or a lot of his stuff. Um, and today he was off, but he had it where, um, we grabbed it right as Keton was dumping, which brought the entire market down.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to hear what anybody has to say about that. And not saying you, but just like Piton brought the entire goddamn thing down. Um, and I won't lie. At one point, I was up like 18%, and
Mm-hmm.
I should have put a stop in at either at even or at like 10%.
Yeah.
Um, and side hustle, I shouldn't look at FinTwit, but it's all I get from my play calls. I won't lie. Um, but so I shouldn't have let it go red for one. I should have easily had a stop loss at like 10%, and I let it go down to like 23%, which is way beyond my rules. Like my rules are like 10%, like max,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and I haven't been doing that. So that was like one of those things. But like the play call in itself was going fine, but issue being was like the market just fucking was tanking. There's nothing you could do about that. So it's just like, did we know P Tom was going to do that and bring Spy down with it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
So did
that's
you
kind of
take
an
puts or
issue.
calls
I took calls on Myrna.
on Moderna?
Hmm.
Let me pull that up just to look. I don't even really need to look at the chart to just know. So you were saying, okay, you were up about like 18-20% ish.
Yeah, it was 18% on the bid and like over 20% I want to stay on the ask. And I was planning on trimming at like 30%. That's another thing I struggle with. Like, do I fucking trim at 10? Do I trim at 20? Like R&R, like do I want 3-1?
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah, I mean, don't feel like you're alone because I guarantee you there's so many other people that are struggling with the same thing, but the only thing that like I don't know, I can say is like even myself, I will start trimming at 10%. The thing with the reason I prefer like a 10% is because okay, say I trim at 10%. Say I take half off the table. No matter what happens, I will not allow that trade to go against me. I'm winning the trade. So if that starts to pull back, like when Peloton took a shit and started pulling everything with it, I
hmm
scaled at that 10%. You know what I'm saying? If you scaled at that 18% and it starts to shit on you, you get out and you win no matter what. Yeah, it would have been great. Yeah, you wanted more out of that. But by ensuring you're either covering your cost basis or taking profit and profitable on the trade, absolutely no matter what happens, if it pulls back, you still make money. Does that make
so
sense?
it does. So my big thing right now is me and you have had talks on like what I've done with like the challenge port, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, and like don't get me wrong, I know that small wins adding up, but like
You're after
I've
something greater, right?
yeah. Well, the
Yeah.
thing is, I'm also you know who NASA is, right?
Yeah.
I'm like in his Discord, and this man pulls like 500-600% winners in a day, and it's incredible. He's fantastic, but I can't seem to manage to get in. But like when I get into trades, I want that 100%. I want that
S- I,
40, 50, 60, 70.
yeah.
You know,
I totally
that's where I like struggle.
I totally feel that and I think those honestly just come organically, and those come when like very key levels are broken. You're not going to see big 300, 400% winners intraday if something's kind of just hovering. If something breaks down and makes a new 52-week low and it really flushes, that's that big winner. Or something breaks and makes a new high.
Mhm.
That's where those big winners come in. Like today, for example, people that grabbed puts today at the end of the day made a shit ton of money. Whether that, but like we can't think in hindsight. No, people didn't know. Okay, I'm gonna grab this. I'm gonna grab whatever 4 puts at the end of the day and make 400%. Nobody knew the flush was gonna be to the extent it was. But those just organically happen. But I completely understand what you're saying is you kind of want more out of your trades.
Yeah.
But I think they just come organically.
I mean, but I also lose more often than I win. But that's also me taking other people's play calls. It's rare that I take my own calls.
Yeah. Do you
You
think
know?
this is another
Go ahead.
question? Do you think so? This is actually in my notes, so this applies to everybody.
Sure.
Do you think when you enter a trade, how often would you say you enter something and you're up after you enter, or you're up a certain percentage? It may be small or not, or do you feel like most of the time you enter and you're immediately at a loss?
It's 50-50.
You'd say it's 50-50?
I wouldn't say, it's like a heavy percentage that I'm down. With me grabbing play calls, I think really the answer is just me starting to do my own things. Although I could lose in that way too.
Yeah.
um, but like smacking like spreads has killed me because then you're almost down like 5-6%. Like
That
every
slippage.
time in itself, exactly. Like
Yeah.
just purely smack in the ass. That's one thing. Um, and I mean, it's hard for me to even say because I am taking somebody else's play call,
Mhm.
So it would be a reflection of what their strategy is versus mine,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. Like it's not me. Like the other problem is I struggle with the confidence of somebody else's chart. I'm like, I should have just taken my 10% and let it go, and then next thing I know, it ran 100%. So I don't know,
That's
honestly.
so I know like you've had success with OTC and all that because we've talked about that. And
Yeah.
so I don't think it's a matter of you don't know what you're doing. You are newer to options, right?
Since November, things should have been put together, but I haven't been learning as much as I should. It's still been relying on other people's play calls.
Yeah, so honestly, in my opinion, I really just feel like maybe take some things and just solely take those trades off yourself, or maybe look at my watch list that I post, but make sure you're taking that off. You're not waiting for maybe me to put an alert out. You have the levels charted, and then maybe you just enter based off that. Maybe go super small and just see, okay, like I'm going to take these trades. I'm going to start taking these trades based off my own thesis and see kind of how they start to play out. I think
Yeah, that was the plan. So the one other thing. So let's say I've had your watch list and somebody else's watch list. Like I've been bouncing around between so many different people to find something that works.
Mm-hmm.
And I finally started using a little bit of watch list. So I use like yours, and do you know who Honeydew is?
Yeah, I know who she is. Yep.
And using hers. And my issue is a little bit, right? Like there's still so many rules that kind of go into the watch list, right? Like today you called that one out, and then we obviously had a conversation in your DMs about that. Is like,
The Roblox one, yeah.
yeah, it's like, okay, it hit what you wanted it to, and typically I would have grabbed that.
Yeah, so I have this in my notes. This is something we can go over. So Roblox today, I just had added the options alert, and I said that Roblox over high a day was something I was watching. So we can see, here was high a day at about 80.65. and I put an alert out somewhere in here. I'm like, listen, I'm watching. This was still when the market was strong. I'm like, listen, guys, I'm watching Roblox break on high of the day. We can see here on this 5 minute at 11, we bust here through the high of the day. We almost end up touching 81, and then the candle closes at about 80, 84-ish. The issue with this is $81 is about 10 cents away, and those $1 increments are huge psych levels. So with something like that, I personally was waiting for that break in confirmation over 81. If we had confirmation over 81, I was jumping in. But then we were talking about also, and we were talking about this in chat with everyone, the spreads on that were ridiculous on the 81s and 82s. So just like you said before, you feel like sometimes you're entering something and due to the bid ask, you're immediately at a loss. So we recognized that, and one, I didn't enter because we still were under 81. And two, the bid ask was ridiculous. We won't really know the bid ask until we get over this level or over a trigger level. We really won't know or be seeing how spread the bid ask is until that approaches. So I understand that you probably thought, oh, well, I want to take this on confirmation above. The only thing I'll say with that, besides the bid ask, is when we're still below or above such a huge psych level, the chances of rejection are a lot higher. So, and somebody asked me this too, when I'm building my trigger levels, say a put trigger's at like $25.10. Say that was the low from the previous day. I'm adjusting that to $25. I'm on what? I'm 10 cents away from a key level. I'll adjust that. Same thing happened here. 10 cents under 81. Yeah, I'm going to probably wait till 81. Listen, did I know it was going to did I know that's when the market was going to reverse? Absolutely not. If I said that, I'd be absolutely bullshitting. Like I had no idea. But we got lucky, and it's very important to see the bid ask, because when it's out of control like that, I won't enter because I don't want to immediately be at a 15% loss. So I don't know if that kind of helps, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, that makes sense. So let me ask you this: when it comes to your watch list, are you as strict as you would be with like breaking over a high a day here, if that makes sense?
As strict in terms of like my personal rules?
As like entering here.
Yeah, so some things that I will never do, or so for example, if a trigger is broken, say at 9:40, 99% of the time I'm not going to enter that, because one of my rules is I really don't like to play the first 30 minutes, 45 minutes. I really don't. I took SoFi 2 days ago, the first 5 minutes, and I got smoked. And that's why one of my rules is I really don't like the first 30, 45 minutes. So say something breaks my trigger level and then kind of starts to bounce back. And then at like 10:20, let's say that's starting to approach that low a day and breaks below. That's when I'm jumping in. I'm either jumping in there or I'm using the 9 EMA strat. If something is above the 9 and then after like 10:30 starts to pull back and breaks below that 9, we've seen that strategy. That strategy, in my opinion, is extremely lucrative. The 9 EMA breaks in either direction, but after I really strongly suggest waiting until like 10:30. But Velvet, to answer your question, yeah, I am extremely strict. Like if I'm so strict and then there's a day I don't make a trade, I'm not beating myself up, because that's just kind of how I've learned. I don't like going chasing things. I don't really ever get that urge to like, okay, damn, it's 12 o'clock, I haven't made a trade, I need to make a trade today. And that's just something like people get over with time. I don't ever feel that anymore. Does that make sense in terms of how strict I am?
Yeah, if I don't even make a trade for an hour, I'm going batshit crazy.
Yeah, no, listen, I'm honest to God, I was the same exact way. Like I would wake up 3 hours before open and I'm sitting there and I'm like, damn, I can't wait to open. I know what I'm going to trade right at open. And I would make trades all the time right at open, and I get destroyed. So I know that some people will think, oh, well, how will I ever get over this urge? But I honestly am extremely strict with that. So I hope that kind of answers your question on that. I am very strict. I know it's hard to get over that urge to want to make trades and stuff, but It's just something that will happen with time. But I know you know what you're doing.
I feel like I do sometimes, and then I just I don't necessarily know exactly what it is. I honestly think the number one thing is me not doing it on my own
You
is kind of
think
the biggest thing,
so? You think
you
that's
know?
the next thing for you? Is let's try to
Yeah.
execute these on my own.
Yeah, I gotta do this like on my own. Like I think that's gonna be one of the biggest things is like following somebody's watch list. I'm not at the place where I want to make my own,
Yeah.
watch list. But I could use some people's watch list. But the thing is, and I always ask people this, like, what is your rule? Like, what is it that you're necessarily like, you know, like looking for? Is it like a 5 minute close? Is it like for me, I can't get a good picture of what's going on the 15, 30 minute, 1 hour, like the
Mm-hmm.
higher time frames. I'm used to trading on OTC where I can see what's going on within a minute and know whether I'm getting in or not. Or like the 3 minute at like the latest because of how quickly that OTCs move.
Yeah.
And so me going up into the 15 minute, which you like to use, which works fantastically for you, I'm like, I have no idea what the fuck I'm looking at. And so that's kind of an issue for it. But like going back to like rules, it's like, okay, what is your rule? Like, okay, it closes over the 5 minute. Where's your stop loss at? You know,
Yeah.
the bids need to be like super, close or tight. Does what else do I look for there? Um, if it has like a major move from like the downside to the upside, will you still grab it? Those types of things.
Yeah, that's something that's actually I also have this in my notes and I touched on this earlier and you had asked me about when will I like let something go? Is that what you're referring to? Like when will I if something's
Yeah,
too extended, will I let it go? Yeah, that's
yeah.
kind of like it's hard to give a concrete answer on that. It's almost
Mhm.
like I don't even want to say a feel thing. It's almost like a screen time thing. Like SoFi is a great example and we can look at this. Um when something's going just constant like this, me personally, I stay away. Um, because, like we mentioned, the probability of a pullback continues to increase. It is so hard for me to enter something like this. This is already broken and confirmed above the 9 and is well above the 9. Um, for me, if I was looking at SoFi today, we talked about this pennant that formed and it ended up breaking out over the 9, broke back down. If I'm looking at something that's so overextended, I will look at the inverse and look for maybe a put opportunity if we get a break up below the 9 with confirmation. But to answer your question, let's go back to this Roblox chart to see kind of the inverse of that. If something is just in a constant downtrend and I'm looking at this, it's very hard again for me to enter something that's been pulling back so much. Like say I'm looking here. Oh, I see rejection at the 9. I'm going to enter. Yes, in hindsight it continued to pull back, but would I have known that it was going to continue to pull back? Absolutely not. It had been in a
No.
downtrend for hours. So it's more of like an eye test thing. It's like, okay, if something, how long has this been moving up or down? Has it been an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours? Because if it's getting to that extended period of time, the chances of something pulling back and reversing continue to increase. But I totally know what you mean, and it's hard to give like a concrete number or answer. But it's just one
Hmm.
of those things. Like look at your RSI. Is it over? Is it super overbought? Is it super oversold? Like we just looked on Microsoft. That's a good indicator too. If it's above 70, I probably won't touch it. If it's below 30, I probably won't touch it. Um, so yeah, it's hard to get for me to give an answer, but I hope that made sense.
It is. I mean, it makes sense. Um, I just wish there was more like concrete. I struggle with abstract, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Like
like you
if
need like a
moves,
finite.
yeah,
Hmm.
I struggle with like abstract of. And obviously, the more and more that I do this, I might have like a better understanding. But like finite rules is where I think that I do better personally. That's where like trading is kind of hard because it's not very finite, or it's not very.
Oh,
Excuse
it's
me, it's not very.
I mean, this is
Like
one of the
rule
hardest.
oriented.
This is one of the hardest things that you can do, and I'm not talking like physical, but I'm talking really just training your brain to think a certain way. Like we can look at and review everything in hindsight and be like, "Oh yeah, shit, I should have entered here." I mean, it continued to pull back, trapped into the 9.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're thinking in hindsight and like trading in hindsight, it is going to be so difficult for us to be successful. For example, let's look at this. Say I'm looking at this chart and I do want to enter here. I'm like, yeah, it's overextended, but it's still trapped under the 9, so I'm going to enter here. I enter, I see rejection, I enter somewhere in here. Now, my get out level is a close back above the 9. I see, okay, we're trapped under the 200s, we're trapped under the 9, we're trapped under the 20. If I enter here, I need to know where I'm exiting this trade. Whenever I enter something under the 9, I almost always will use that confirmation over the 9 as my get out. So if you use the 9 EMA strategy, you know what I'm talking about. And this applies to either direction. If we go and look at SoFi, okay, this is extended in the opposite direction. Maybe I want to enter here. I see, okay, we're above the 9. My get out is a close below the 9, or at least where I start scaling out. Because if I'm entering here and it's still well above my entry, even with a close under the 9, I have to scale there. Because if it closes under the 9, chances of a pullback greatly increase. So that's why I feel like the 9 EMA strategy and supply and demand gives you such a clear risk to reward, and it also is a roadmap for entries and exits. That's why I feel like I always hammer those down, and I know it can get annoying, but I just feel like the 9 EMA strategy that a lot of people in here are starting to use, and using supply and demand, it gives you that roadmap, and it gives you that clear, okay, entry, exit, and you can go from there. I'm doing a thread tomorrow on how to use the 9 and 20 in conjunction with one another, so that'll be posted tomorrow for you guys as well. But Velva, I feel like you shouldn't knock yourself. Like I know it's frustrating, but it's not an easy thing. Like options will really test your like psychological ability or your mental
I think part of one of the things I don't do enough is like actually like starting out resistance and support. Like that's one of the big things. Like I need a better strategy of doing for one.
Do you think it's just from coming from OTC?
Well, I mean, support and resistance on OTC are extremely easy.
Yeah.
You know, insanely easy. And it's funny, I didn't really know about like support and
supply and demand. Yeah.
And I still really don't. Like I've like looked a little bit, and like everybody's supply and demand is a little bit different, which throws me off. Again, remember like I like more concrete rules, and if everybody has
like a universal rule, like a universal.
If everybody has a different supply and fucking demand, then like
So that's the
mental.
Yeah, with supply and demand, some people's zones are going to be extremely out of whack. The way I was, no one taught me. I just taught myself, but I used material that was out there and available to me. The way I learned was there's one of two ways you can draw your zones. You can go from impulsive moves. You can start at the wick and go to the body. Some people will include, say we have a very small candle here and then an impulsive move. Some people will also include that candle. But the way I like to do it, I like to keep a tighter zone because I feel like they're more accurate. I will go from the wick to the body. If something enters my zone, I either bid within the zone or I'm looking for a pivot. I want to see buyers step in within that zone. Because essentially these areas are big unfilled orders in either direction. Same with supply. And this is the homework that I wanted to go over, guys, this snap chart. So we can talk about this in a minute. But Velvet, yeah, with supply and demand, if you still have questions and stuff, you can reach out to me. I mean, I have 3 or 4 lessons on that now. But I understand you kind of are looking for like a universal strategy for that.
I honestly think for me too, if I just like, I'm in your Discord, I'm in like 6 different Discords, and if I kind of just found my home and like maybe use their strategy like in the time being, you know what I mean? Like it might be.
I gotta say something. Something.
Oh yeah.
You gotta to tune out the noise. You got Ant, rely on Ant and just Ant. I know you dropped like 10 names. You're like, oh, I'm talking to this person.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this watch list. No. Set up your own watch list or get Ant's, and that's it, man. When Ant posted his watch list last night, I charted that thing out like crazy. Not just the trigger levels either. Like, and like you said you come from OTC to options. Yeah, 200%, 300%. It's awesome. It feels good, but you know what feels better than those rare 200, 300%? 10%, not going negative 50% on something.
Yeah.
Like today, I traded Pinterest. Okay, I bought it at what I had mapped out as resistance, and it sliced right through it. Sliced right straight through it, and I cut it probably 5 minutes too late. But if that was me a year ago, I wouldn't have cut it. I'd have let it go to zero. But in this case, it would have never went to zero if the whole market crashed or whatever today, and it would have printed. But regardless of me losing on that trade, I knew exactly that I respected my own personal stops. I don't have hard stops. I never have hard stops, but I didn't let it die on me, and that's growth. That's growth, man. That's how you have to do it.
Anthony, thanks for sharing. But I think it feels if you take, like, to go off your point, you take something, you make 10%, but it was completely all you, and you did that shit on your own. That feels honest to God, it feels 10 times better than taking someone's calls. And that's why I feel like for the best way for people to learn in here is like, yeah, I could send out 20 alerts a day.
Please do.
No. Yeah. See, like I could send out all these alerts, and then people could take trades and stuff. But I feel like by giving a key defined levels and people being able to enter those on their own, or maybe it's not even something I put out. Like, I don't know if Steph's in here. I think Steph took Microsoft yesterday. That wasn't on my watch list. She took Microsoft and nailed Microsoft. The feeling of, okay, this is my plan. If you want to review your thesis or your levels with me, I have about 30 people, no exaggeration, that will message me charts every night, and I'll look at them, and I make sure that I look through every single one, because if I'm just going, looking at it, not reading it, and sending out, oh yeah, it looks great, and it's wrong, that completely defeats the purpose of this. Velvet, say whenever you do start maybe playing some things on your own, if you want to chart levels out and send them to me, go for it, and I'll look at that and I'll review that and make sure, this is accurate. Because if you're trying to take entries off inaccurate charts, then you'll never really be able to establish a plan that works if your levels are off. But to go off what Anthony was saying, that 5%, that 10% on doing something all on your own feels a lot better, in my opinion, than maybe grabbing somebody else's call and it does like 50%.
Makes sense. So
I would one thing that helped me a lot in that specifically in terms of tuning out the noise, find one ticker with liquid options and trade that for a month. That's it. One ticker. Don't look at anything else. Look at SPY, QQQ, and the VIX. Other than that, don't trade anything else, because it lets you learn the personality of that stock. It lets you know where you're going to get these resistance levels. And QCOM and Goldman Sachs, there was, I think, like 2 months last year that I traded those, and that was it. Because I liked it. I know GS doesn't really respond to QQQ and SPY, so I love that.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like
QCOM though is, that thing is it's a money printer. Goes to 185 every single week at some point, and then it's gonna hit 180 another time, and then it's gonna test all-time high. For the past 3 weeks, that's all the thing has done. And I paper traded that today, the 170 put, when I saw it break a key level that I had. And that thing's like $700 now, and it was at $56. So like, just look at one thing.
Yeah,
this isn't hard.
The information overload that comes with trying to And Velvet, I'm not singling you out by any means, but this is a great point you brought up. You're like, yeah, I'm in like 6 or 7 Discords, and and I'm sure
Yeah.
you follow people on Twitter and stuff.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah, so it is such information overload, in my opinion. If you're in like 5 Discords, you're following 30 people, you have 10 of their notifications on, because you're seeing all these things pour in, these alerts, this and this, and you're trying to watch everything. Or maybe you're even trying to watch half of that, and even half of that's too much. Like, I post 4 things on the watch list every night. I'm watching 2 or 3 of those. I have all those levels charted out, but going into each day with 2 or 3 main targets is going to be much better than trying to watch a whole plethora of things. And like you guys know, a lot of the things that go on the watch lists or the watch lists on Sunday are things that I have put on multiple times because I personally know how they play. And like Miss S just said, she plays DraftKings a lot, and that's something she loves to play. Before, I was playing FCell for a month and a half. I could still be playing FCell. It's still, if you look at the FCell chart, it's been in a downtrend for 3 months. So if you can find something and get familiar with it, I said this yesterday on stream, you quite literally could make a living every year off one thing. If you know how to play both ways, you quite literally could make a living off one thing.
Yeah, the IRS doesn't care where you get your money from. They
Yeah,
don't.
so it's
It could
one
be
of the
Tesla. It could be freaking Torchlight.
yeah, it's just
know?
one of those things. Like, I feel like the information overload might Velvet, it might be a little bit of information overload. I don't know because I don't want to speak on your behalf, but I feel like when I started to simplify things for myself is really when I started to find success. And I think the more we can simplify things, the kind of better off that we can be.
Okay. So let me ask you this, because there's a couple things that kind of came up with that, and if I don't ask you now, I'm never gonna remember. If you
Yeah.
don't mind. So then I don't know if I'm gonna stick to. I like the idea of sticking to like one thing, but
Mhm.
one thing is just gonna bore the hell out of me.
Yeah.
In all honesty, like I need a couple different charts. I won't lie.
Mm-hmm.
So my question being then, do you recommend I stick with just kind of like the watch list for now before I start making my own watch list? Because part of the reason I was taking play calls
Mm-hmm.
is I am doing like this port challenge, and dear God, if I was using my big account while doing options, I would have
Yeah.
I would have lost
But that's
$1 million
smart on you to
already,
not do that, to be honest.
you know?
Yeah.
But so then my thing is I was taking play calls so I could slowly build up this account and get more comfortable while I was learning.
Yeah.
I was kind of trying to cheat here, you know, a little bit of like, oh, let's just make some money while I'm learning.
Mm-hmm.
Do you recommend that I just kind of stick with some watch lists now of some people that I trust, like you and probably like Honeydew, and stick with that, and then kind of go from there, or like what are your
Yeah, so I think it's about I think that's probably your best bet, and then through that you will find things that you enjoy trading, and then that you like trading. I get this question all the time. Oh, how do you build the watch list? How do you find stocks for the watch list? It's a lot to do with things I'm comfortable with trading and things I've traded before. So to answer your question, I think yeah, I know Honeydew, and she's great, and this is not me bragging, because I don't brag, and that's just not the kind of person I am, but the watch lists, I'd say a majority of the time, do very well.
both of yours do. I've been watching both of them.
Yeah,
Her hit, 4 of them hit for over 100% today. Like both of you guys are like really good, and so that's why I was just wondering, like, if you think I should just kind of stick with watch list.
yeah, I think I definitely think that'll help you, but like through that quote unquote journey of that, not to be like corny or anything, but you will find
Sure.
things that you enjoy playing or you prefer to play, and like you'll kind of master the movement of those. There's people in here that have followed me for a while, and I used to scalp the same stocks every single day because I like had played them for months and months and months. And
Jan.
yeah, Jan. So like I literally knew when it was going to dip, at what time, where to place my entry, and then immediately it would pop like 30 cents. but that was just because I had played it for months. So yeah, I think Velvet, that's probably your best bet if you, because Honeydew's great. It's not like you're trying to, it's not like it's some dirtbag on Twitter that just pumps the exact premium and strike and everything of his calls, and then that's why the thing moves. She actually puts the work in and she knows what she's doing. And yeah, I definitely suggest doing that. But listen, don't ever be afraid to, like, if you start charting these levels and stuff, absolutely send me a message and I will respond as soon as humanly possible.
Same.
Sure,
Yeah.
of
And
course.
Anthony's great. Anthony, I've known him for a while now. He's from the mob, so if you guys see Bad Anthony talking, he's a really good options trader.
Okay.
I was gonna say, you said you get bored only looking at one
A
chart. Is
one
that what you
ticker.
said?
Yeah. Next thing I know,
Okay,
I'm on
well,
TikTok.
here we go. SPY, VIX, QQQ, and then one
Yeah.
ticker.
Yeah.
And again, who gets bored making money? Like, this is me just being like, as a real person to you, how could you get bored making money regardless of what ticker it's on?
Problem is, I'm not making money, and
Oh,
there's
okay.
times
There you go.
I'm losing a lot of money in options. Like, like
This
recently.
shit's fucking hard.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
I
not
mean-
easy. No, it is not
Like,
easy.
I went back to OTC and I made a trade for this isn't a bag, but I made like $20,000 on OTC, which is very rare nowadays. And I'm like, why am I doing options? But I'm addicted to options. I physically can't stop trading options. But it's getting to the point that I'm gonna probably have to give up if I can't start making, bare minimum like 5% of my account every day. This is a small account that's not
5%, dude.
5%.
5% is extreme.
Well, no, it's not when you have a small account. Like if I had, if I was on like my big port and I'm asking for 5% a day, sure. But if I'm under 10 grand, and asking for like 5%, I don't think it's all that much.
I understand. I mean, this last year I did $50 challenges to 1,500 3 separate times, just trading options, and it, like, I understand that those 100%ers, but like at some point you have to be okay taking your 10% and walking away and not trading that again. Like you said, you have 2 accounts, like I do too, but those 10% add up. I know and Teddy both are continuously talking about, not 1%. I know Teddy is, but like if you walk down the street and you saw $10 on the ground, would you say, like, man, if that was 20, I'd pick it up? No. You just pick the $10 up and be happy with it, right?
To go
'Cause
off
you would
that,
be.
to go off that too quick is, I do understand probably what you're saying. Like I know you've made money in OTC, and then you're saying, well, you're trading in a smaller account, and like I said, you want more out of these trades. But I think that goes back to that example you told me about on Moderna today. You were up like 20%. And that's great. And I know, like you said to me, you're like, yeah, I wanted more out of it. And then Peloton shit, and then everything went to hell. This is the problem of the stock market. Like, quite literally, things can turn on a dime. You could have went up 20% and in the same 5-minute candle been down 20%. And that's, again, how the market is, and especially how options can be.
See, what's funny is my greed actually isn't my biggest issue. It's not really my biggest problem. I did want more in this scenario because I was down on the day. Like, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
When I first started options, I was like, fuck it, I'll scalp for 10%. I don't care, and just exit and not leave any runners.
Yeah.
Which was kind of an issue, if I grab 10 contracts, why not leave 2 to see if they run 100%, right? Like, that's a huge thing, and leave like a trailing like 10% stop. Why not do that? But I should have 100% like have trimmed there. So a couple more questions, then I'll let everybody else get back. And I'm sorry I've derailed this lesson.
Oh no,
so I
no, you're
apologize to
good.
everybody in
No,
here.
this is awesome. You're
No,
good, man.
I want you guys to ask questions.
But so going back to, like, let's say the 5-minute close. What are some tangible rules you kind of have for yourself on the 5-minute close when you're doing a watch list? Like today, when you brought up Roblox, that wasn't actually on your watch list.
Mhm.
So it was something that you kind of thrown out. So what I asked earlier is the rules different, like on the watch list a little bit versus you playing for something that's going over the high of day. Does
Um,
that make sense? What I'm asking?
no, yeah, I know what you're saying. So, for Roblox, yeah, it wasn't on the watch list. Um, but there's a bunch of names that I will watch every day.
Sure.
And I think that was on yesterday's watch list, if I remember correctly, or maybe the day before. But there are things that I'm comfortable with trading and that I'll watch every day, and Roblox is one of those. So I was just flipping through charts. I saw, okay, market looks strong. It pulled back a little bit here, but now it's testing high a day. Once it broke that high a day, it was a pretty decent sized green candle. And like we looked at before, it had almost broken or almost got rejected at 81. So in regards to 5 minute closes, if something is it boners up, let's look at this candle. Let's look at this candle, for example. If my trigger's here, okay, high a day, let's call this high a day, and you have a big ass green candle like this, and maybe a psych level's right above, I have to wait for that psych level because chances of rejection are pretty good. But it just goes back to like a feel thing and making sure on our 5 minute candle closes that we're just looking at in either direction. Okay, is there overhead close to this, or for example, say this was a demand zone, but there was a support area right below or a huge psych level right below. Okay, if this closes under our demand zone, is there a even psych number here? So it's just taking those into account. I don't know if that really answers your question, but
Kind of.
I'm taking different levels into account.
Sure.
But I'm doing it on the fly as well. So sometimes I'm scrolling through charts and I see, okay, I see this breaks above, and then there's resist, and I see a psych level right above. So I'm doing that on the fly as well sometimes. I wanted to go over this
Does
snap.
that mean? Oh,
No,
sorry.
no. Go ahead, and then
Does that mean with your stop loss, that you're putting it back below the breakout level, and or will it be a certain percentage?
so are you
That
talking?
makes sense.
So let's use Roblox for an example. Are you saying say we
Or
break?
let's say snap. Let's say snap. Let's say you went above this demand zone you grabbed here on the 5 minute, which actually didn't make too. Would you have grabbed on the 5 minute there above the demand zone?
Yeah, so we'll go over this chart. We can go over this chart
Okay.
right now.
Okay.
Let me put this in. I took the levels off because this was the homework posted. Yeah, guys, we can go over this. If anyone, side note, if anyone wants to pull their charts up, this is the chart I sent out today. This was Snap. I purposefully didn't, I don't know if that's a word, purposefully didn't include the symbol because I didn't want to kind of give away since I'd already posted this.
My bad, guys.
No. It's good now. You guys can know now. I just didn't want to post it before because I had already charted this and put it in chat. But yeah, guys. So we had supply once, twice, rejection. I literally could have extended this over, but there's no point as this zone matched up with this. So I drew my supply zone. I drew my demand. I sent an alert out that that snap was testing supply, and here's the thing. The flow that came in, I don't know if anybody still has the image, was 99% bullish. And there was some recent orders that came in, so I saw that, and I saw, okay, market's healthy, testing supply, and I thought, okay, if this breaks supply, taking everything into consideration, it's above the 9, market's healthy, and the flow's extremely one-sided. All right. I mean, I trade supply and demand anyway, so I might as well trade this. I was waiting, though, for confirmation above. We can see this is Velvet. This, I think, will help you and anyone else.
Sure.
And we talked about this before. The clear defined levels, entry, and exit. And where's my risk? So, waiting for a close, guys, above supply is what I was waiting for. We see we closed above, I entered. We back test supply and turn that into demand. Big time green candle on the 5 minute. Now, if I'm entering this, I then need to see, before I enter this, is there any overhead? Where's the next psych level? The next psych level is not till 37, so we're pretty much in the clear. I don't need to worry about that like we did on Roblox today. I see confirmation above. I enter, it backtests, big time bounce. Listen, my exit point is already defined for me. Whether I'm using the 9 or using my demand zone that was previously supply, I either exit underneath, I take profit, exit at break even, or I take profit, scale, exit the last bit on the break of the 9. That's the beauty of supply and demand. It is this roadmap for entries and exits. So like I said, entered above supply, you can exit underneath because you could wick down, bounce back up. You could take profit, put your stop loss at break even or mental stop. And then, or you could use this 9 strategy that we use, either scale on the way up, scale the last bit on the break of the 9, ride it up, take profit on the break of the 9. But I was not only just using supply and demand, I was using, okay, I saw the one-sided flow, I saw, okay, the market was healthy, and I was using all that into consideration when I was formulating my plan. But listen, I already knew where I was exiting this trade before I even entered it. I knew where I would exit this trade if it broke above. But Velvet, does that kind of help at all?
It does. So my big question is, so it breaks above. You're obviously buying. The 5-minute close is like right above the line. You're like, ooh, this is perfect.
Yep.
It like retested, like you said, it retested supply, right?
Yep.
And which is what you look for a lot. But so a couple questions that like the stop loss. Like, yes, it kept going in the right direction. I've had obviously where it doesn't go in the right direction. Like I took one today and it kind of shit the bed for me. But where would you typically have that stop loss? Is it more just based on a percentage, or where it goes down to like the bottom line of the supply there?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Besides even, I did hear that part.
Besides break even?
Yes.
Yeah. So for me with options, I use a mental stop.
Okay.
I think it's hard. It's so hard for me to talk about this subject because I preach hard stops, but
Oh, okay.
well, I've talked about I use mental stops and that I suggest using them, but the problem with that is I know people use mental stops and then they don't respect those stops, and then something keeps going down. They should have gotten out. They didn't use a hard stop, and now they're just using hopium, and they're just hoping and holding on for it to reverse. But that's what I mean. That's the issue with a mental stop. If you're not strict and if you don't hold yourself accountable to that, you're going to get destroyed. So, but I personally use a mental stop because I always respect that. But yes, so on that,
Mental stop. Where would that be?
my mental stop is under my demand zone. Is a close under my demand zone. Well, it was supply turn demand. That's my clear risk. If I immediately enter this Velvet and it immediately goes against me, I'm out. I'm out there. As you can see, this demand zone is right in line with our 9 as well. But if I enter this, say I'm not scaling out at all, where am I going to get out or exit this trade? I'm out of this on the break of the 9. I have to be. I also have to know that as we approach 37, which is a psych level, that we will probably experience resistance. You can see we broke above and we wicked above 1, 2, 3 times, ended up closing below. But yeah, my mental stop when using supply and demand is always underneath that level if it goes against me right away. So we're talking, I enter this here on confirmation and it flushes down, I'm out. I have to be out. Whether it bounces back or not, I have to be out. Because that's part of my plan, and that's how...
That's the clear risk to reward there. I mean, if we're looking at what the supply zone is...
And that's the
like
beauty
where
of...
your next resistance is.
Yeah, that's the beauty of supply and demand, and that's also the beauty of the 9 EMA strategy is you have that clear defined risk. That's also the beauty of when we play these downtrend breaks. If we're playing the break, we know we exit if it falls back within that. But that's why I think these strategies are so important, because it's literally a roadmap for your entries and exits. So I hope that answered your question.
It does. So you literally just have a spot, like what is that, 36.38
36,
or something like.
36, 38.
Just as an aside, on
It's something
Snapchat,
like that. It's close to that.
Yeah.
You know,
the flow is
on Snap.
almost always bullish.
Um,
On Snap, Anthony?
Snap, the flow is ridiculously bullish almost always, and when this thing runs, it usually runs pretty well.
Yeah.
And I know you guys were talking about Roblox earlier. I traded that when it was down like 75 to 85 range
Mm-hmm.
earlier the year, and that 80 level, 80 to 81, and then 81 to 85 are hard resistances.
Yeah.
Hard resistances, and just I think Roblox broke over 281 today briefly, and then went down afterwards for the rest of the day. I think if I'm looking at
On
it right.
Roblox?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we went over this
Right.
before. I had sent that alert out that I was watching this on the break of the high of the day. But then we get this close that's right near $81, like we mentioned before, which is a psych level. So that's kind of why I waited on that. But yeah, Velvet, I think I know you for supply and demand. You asked about having like a finite system, but I do believe that
Yeah.
you would really enjoy using that just because like I said, it's that literal roadmap.
yeah.
Yep, that's
Yep.
the roadmap for that trade. And here's the thing, like there's no perfect strategy, and you know that. I don't need to say that, and I'm sure everybody else in here knows that. But it is very consistent. And it's also very consistent on SPY, IWM, QQQ. I know Juan's in here. Rob, they trade SPY, IWM, QQQ using that. Some other people in here do as well. Digital, they work out very well on your large caps and whatnot. So I think that's something you would enjoy. And the same thing applies to the 9 EMA strategy. And we can look at this here. Really quickly, say I enter on confirmation under the 9, say I grab some puts, it's clear to find risk. If I enter this under the 9, I know I'm exiting if it closes back above. So maybe I ride this down and then it closes above, I'm out. Or maybe sometimes you enter and it immediately will jump back above and close, I'm out. That's why the 9 strategy is so good as well, because it gives you that clear to find risk. If you enter here and immediately have to exit, that's a very minimal loss. Yes, nobody wants to enter a trade to immediately exit it, but that's much better. Say this reverses and starts to run hard. You're going to be kicking yourself for not doing so. So that's why I love the 9. I love downtrend breaks, and I love supply and demand. It just gives you that roadmap. And like we always say, some people are going to lose 50% of their trades and win the other 50%. But if we're cutting losers quickly and we're taking profit scaling out and letting our winners run and letting them work, we're going to be extremely successful. So I don't know. I know it can suck. No one ever wants to lose a trade. Obviously, that's without saying. But we just have to hold ourselves accountable to our rules and exit things if they go against us.
You got to set your ego aside too. I mean, especially like if you have a small account, like I said, I did $50 to $100 challenges. You can only trade that cash account on Webull once or twice, really, because it's under $50 or under $100. But you can't scale. You can't scale because you're buying one contract. You can't. You're sitting there hoping, like Ant was saying, you're sitting there hoping for it to go and basically not make you done for the day. If I have a $50 challenge and I buy an option and I cut it immediately at $45. I have $45 for the rest of the day. And that shit, it's going to wear on you. It's going to wear on you, and it's going to hurt, but you have to be okay with it. You have to be okay with it, because if you don't have an account that you can even scale into, scale out of, if you can only buy one contract, having the discipline to cut that when it goes against you is more powerful than anything. Yeah. Because the discipline is where it really, I mean, if you're not disciplined, you're going to blow your shit up. It's going to happen.
Yeah,
1,000%.
One of my big things is, I don't know, I feel like for me, for now, while I'm trying to get better, is I've got to set, like, percent stop. Because you know how people are like, yeah, I put it at fucking, hold on, so let's look at this. we're looking at what, Roblox? Like, let's say I put my stop at like 80.50,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I don't know what that's gonna be. Like, my brain doesn't work like that yet for options because I don't know what that price will be at, on the contracts,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think it's better for me to just set like a strict 10% stop loss.
Use an option calculator, by the way.
There is, but you have to put in all the input while you're in the middle of doing a trade, and I don't like doing that. You know what I mean? Or
No,
do you-
but
do
I
you
can
do that-
understand other people not.
Do you do that in the middle of your trade?
I can understand you not wanting to, but I can't understand it for myself.
That's right. And do you do that in the middle of a trade?
Yeah, I will, and I can do that on unusual whales.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. It's
did
actually
not.
it's not as like time consuming as you think. It's pretty quick. I've actually been talking to my friend, and we're trying to get one in here, so we'll be working on that this weekend. But anyway,
Okay. That makes sense. I'm trying to think.
you were saying
I
about the
feel like for me-
10% rule.
Yeah, it makes more sense to just kind of have like a strict like 10%.
I honestly think the thing that's gonna like do wonders for you, honestly, is you even said like, yeah, I'm just gonna use this time to learn, but man, just like grab one contract. You know what I mean? Just grab one, like grab something that's cheap and see, okay, maybe just like write your thesis out real quick, put it in your notes on your phone or something. Use supply and demand, use the 90 MA strat, and just see what happens. Because that's gonna really help you build a strategy that works. And I wouldn't say paper trade, but I would say definitely maybe just grab one and see if it works. I don't know if Amber's in here, but Amber's been paper trading a strategy, and it's been like extremely successful. Yes, it's not real money, but she's building that strategy, and then she's transferring it now over to actual playing with real money.
Makes sense.
So I just think, I really do think, though, once you start finding something that works, whether it's supply and demand, the 90 MA, whatever it may be, a break on the high a day, I think once you start getting in that rhythm, you're going to find that, yeah, it's starting to make more sense, or yeah, that's kind of then when I can start maybe taking bigger position sizing.
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. Does anybody... You're good. Dude, listen, trading options is not easy. Trading in this market is not easy. Anyone that tells you different. And a thing to note, too, you see these dudes posting, 800% this, 900% that. I hate to break it to people in here, but I know for an absolute fact there's a lot of guys on Twitter that are showing you paper trade gains that they're trying to sell a service, and it's pretty fucked up. So I'm not saying that's everyone. There's a lot of legit people, but I just think
a lot of guys too are scaling at 10%, 20%,
exactly,
and then they hold one runner when they had 150 contracts.
Yeah, they're not holding a full.
Cool.
Yeah, they're not holding a full position for 500%. So that's the thing as well. Like, and there's also people that have been doing this for how many years? So
True.
It's the combination. It's hard. Like, it's hard, man. It's hard. We always want to compare ourselves to other people. I've used this reference before, but like FinTwit feels like Instagram. Like we see somebody post, they're on a yacht and doing this and that, and like we want to compare our life to theirs, but there's people that have a lot more experience, and there's there's people that they're pulling the sheet over you. They're really not trading. So I don't know. I just think that's why I don't follow anyone on Twitter. I just kind of like to block all that shit out.
I might start doing that. I think for me, I need to have kind of like rules while I like learn more about supply and demand, right?
100%. Yep.
Like, hey, fine, take your 10% losses, because I'm doing smaller trades right now, and that's fine. It doesn't hurt the bank, I start scaling at, let's say, 10%, and then I could let runners go with the trailing stop. At the end of the day, I don't lose anything less than like 10%, and I just let things go.
Exactly. And once
you versus you, man.
Doable.
Yeah, once you build that too, then it's like, okay, like I said, you have you've tested this. You know, okay, this works. So then that's when you can move forward and be like, all right, I'm gonna take a little bit bigger of a position. And I honestly do think that definitely will help. And it's hard too, like I just think block out the noise as well. You got, like, if you're in so many Discords and following so many people, it's just information overload. I think it's just so much coming at you. It can be extremely stressful.
When I started, I was in 6 Discords, 2 paid services, and like Twitter.
Yeah, your head was probably spinning.
Well, it was spinning, and I was making some money, but it didn't feel right. It definitely didn't feel right. And then, I mean, after I started talking to you and Teddy, like, I was like, okay, these guys are actually trying to educate versus here's an alert. Like, I was a subscriber to Mansell, and yeah, the guy calls some good stuff sometimes. Yeah. Other times, he'll call something out for 0.05 and scale into his alert at 0.1, and I've seen it done. I was there for 4 months. I know exactly when he does it. He's not doing it on a large cap, but if he posts something at 0.05 and he's scaling at least half, if not 3/4 into that alert, that's just what happens.
Yep.
I know
it's the day trade / swing trade alert that they post out with low volumes and super cheap.
Yeah, they're posting these dead contracts, and no wonder why we talked about this last night. These people are posting these dead contracts for no reason. Like, you're giving the exact strike, everything, and then you're following jumps on it, and obviously it's gonna go. So
makes sense.
But yeah, guys, does anybody else have any other questions? Velvet, do you have anything else, or?
No, no. I think I've defined like how I'm gonna do my stop loss. So I'm on Fidelity, by the way. Also, it's fucking butt cheeks. I need to get to like Webull or something.
Yeah.
And do like a conditional order. I have to do like conditional orders, which are like really frustrating on Fidelity. I gotta do it like immediately.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that has gone against me where I take bigger losses is I get in and immediately I'm down 10%.
Yeah, that's a problem.
One, that spreads, or two, it like goes against me.
Mm-hmm.
And I could be just done like really quickly.
Yeah, that's definitely an issue, and like that's like something we talked about too with the spreads. If something hits your level and you're like, all right, I'm jumping in, the spread's all out of whack, you don't want to risk it. There's been times I've jumped in, I've been down 15% right away. There's been times I've jumped in, I've been up 15% right away. It's a coin flip. I mean, it's just, in my opinion, not worth it when the spread's so crazy.
Yeah, makes sense.
As a personal thing, like, this is just Anthony personal thing, if you're not willing to market buy it, why are you taking the trade? That's just a personal thing, because you have to have the confidence that the trade's going to go your way, and you also have to have no ego enough to say that the trade didn't go your way, right?
Yep.
That's fair. Okay. I don't think I really have any other questions. Sorry, everyone, for hijacking this live.
No, dude, listen.
Apologize.
I want the questions.
It was not the intention at all.
Yeah, but those questions you asked, I'm sure, answered some other people's questions.
Dan knows me very well. He's in my Discord back and used to trade OTCs with me. So that guy.
But no, listen. Those questions, I'm sure people had similar questions. So if anybody can always hop on here, guys, hop on voice or in chat and ask questions. That's part of the purpose of these streams. But yeah, I really encourage no one to ever be afraid to ask questions. It's the best way to learn. And I know when I first started, I was afraid to ask I didn't have anybody, but I was afraid to ask anybody questions on Twitter or whatever it was, because I don't know. It was like a pride thing. But yeah, guys, ask questions. And if nobody else has anything for me, that's why you so clutch. Thanks, Juan. But yeah, guys, this will be posted. I need to export this. This is going to be like an 1.5 hour long video, so obviously it'll have to be on YouTube. The watch list will be out later tonight. I will be streaming tomorrow in the Traderverse Discord. I will drop the link in here. So tomorrow I will be in Traderverse streaming at 9:30, and I will link that here in a minute. So Thanks.
with that really quickly.
What's up?
Does that mean you're giving like entries and exits? You're walking through how you're doing a trade. You're walking through charts, or what does that look like?
For tomorrow?
Yes.
It's gonna be a little bit of education stuff, but we're also gonna be looking at certain things. He sent me. I know the guy that Mike who runs the Discord. He sent me a list of questions. I forget. I think it's like key levels and some other stuff, supply and demand. But yeah, I'll also be looking at some live trading. So, but that'll be tomorrow at 9:30.
Cool.
But yeah, guys, gonna hop off here, get this exported and uploaded. I'll be hanging around in chat. So thanks, guys.